You need to understand that we are talking about that type of what? It is a type of a muscle. So it is a type of a what? It is a type of a muscle that is attached to the skeleton. That is what? That is attached. So this one is attached to the skeleton. So it is attached to the what? It is attached to the skeleton. This is what you need to get. So when we talk about skeletal muscles, we are talking about those type of muscles that are attached to the skeleton. Since these ones are attached to the skeleton, and you are going to observe that locomotion that we get to talk about is in what? Is in animals, because animals are able to move from one place to the other. Every body part is able to move, compared to plants, where only a branch part or a branch part gets to locomote or to change direction. But an animal is able to move. So you now discover that since it is connected to what we get to call the skeleton, and you know what a skeleton is, you discover that we've got hydrostatic skeletons. They are what we get to call endoskeletons, exoskeletons. All those combined, they get to help in what? Movement, support, and all those things. Get to provide a framework of the body, all those things. So you are now going to understand that this one gets to do what? Gets to play a major role. So skeletal muscles gets to play a major what? A major role in what? Locomotion. This same topic that we are doing, so these ones have got a bigger place in this particular topic. And if you've observed, we are talking about skeletons and the like. So this is it, and this is what you are supposed to understand. You also need to understand that when you get to view a skeletal muscle on a microscope, so we are going to say that when what? When viewed. So I'm going to say that when viewed under a what? Under a microscope. So when they are viewed under a what? Under a microscope. When you view a skeletal system, a skeletal muscle under a microscope, you discover that you are going to find some what? They look like what? They get to look like stripes. So I'm going to say they are what? They are, they get to be like they look. So I'm going to say they look what? They look striped. Meaning that these things get to have somewhat, they get to contain some marked parts or some marked thing on them. They are what? They are marked. More like they get to be marked. So this is it. It's got that there are certain things that get to be formed on them. So this is it that you need to get under skeletal muscles. And you also need to understand that these same ones, we get to call them what? They are referred to, or they are what? I'm going to say that they are what? They are multi-nucleated. They are multi-nucleated. This word, multi, meaning a lot. Nucleus, coming from the word nucleus. So a lot of what? Nuclei. I can't say a lot of nucleuses. There's nothing like that. So when it is one, we get to call it nucleus. When there are a lot, we get to use the word nuclei. So when we say that they are multinucleated, we get to mean, so I'm going to say, meaning that what? I'm going to say that meaning that, so I'm going to say, meaning that each cell, this is what I'm going to say, meaning that each cell has what? Has several nuclei. So each cell has several what? Nuclei. You discover that the nucleus that are on each cell, they are quite a lot. So we get to say they get to have several what? Several nuclei. Even as we are moving forward together, I guess you are writing down these things and you are able to understand them clearly. So I want you people to follow me nicely. You are supposed to be writing down these things in your books, even as we are moving. So I guess you are not finding any challenges here so far from what we've covered and from the things that we've looked at. We are still moving. You must be able to explain all these things if questions are to come in your exams. Aside looking at this characteristic of skeletal muscles that they have got, they are multinucleated, you also need to understand that these ones, this point, I already told you to say that skeletal muscles are what? I already told you to say that the skeletal muscles, when we are talking about skeletal muscles, so I told you to say that skeletal muscles are what? Are voluntary. These ones are what? They are voluntary. What do I mean when I say that skeletal muscles are voluntary? This meaning, so I'm going to say that, meaning that what? So I'm going to say that, meaning the contraction that gets to happen. So the contraction is what gets to happen consciously. This is it, and I want you to understand it. By the what? And it gets to be controlled. So gets to be what? Gets to be controlled by the what? By the brain. So gets to be controlled by the brain. So some parts that gets to make up the central nervous system, we've got the brain. So some information will go to the brain. I will say information go to the brain for interpretation. So this is it. So when we say these skeletal muscles are voluntary, I guess you know what I mean. Their contraction are being controlled by the brain. So this is something that you need to get and understand. I guess we are moving together. We proceed and move to another subtopic. We are looking at certain things. This topic is good because it's talking about your body, so I don't expect any person to fail any question that you get to encounter. We move forward and look at what? We look at joints now. Let us go to this particular topic where we are going to look at joints. What is a joint? You start analyzing it. A joint. Joint. Like you are able to tell me that, okay, I've got these joints. So what are joints? Whenever we are talking about joints, we are talking about a what? A joint is a point. You have to understand that is a point where what? Where two or what? Or more bones. So where we talk about two or more what? Or more bones. So I'll say where two or more bones get to do what? Get to meet. That is called a joint. So when we are talking about a joint, you have to understand that a joint is a point where two or more bones get to meet. We've started another thing away from muscles. We've concluded that particular topic. We are now looking at joints. And you need to understand that we've got three types of main joints. We've got three what? We've got three types of what? Three types of main joints. So we've got three types of main joints. The body is made up of three main types. So I'm calling them main types. Have you seen? These are the major types of joints. One, you need to understand they are what we get to call fibrous joints. So they are what we get to call fibrous joints. Aside knowing this, secondly, there are also those ones that we get to call as what? Cartilaginous joints. So we get to call them what? As cartilaginous joints. So I'm going to say cartilaginous what? Joints. This is A. Here it's supposed to be A. Then we also have the third type that we get to call the synovial joint. So it is called a synovial joint. So we've got the fibrous joints, we've got the cartilaginous joints, we also have the synovial joints. These are the three joints that you are supposed to get. So even as we get to advance, even as we get to look at this wonderful topic, these are certain things that I want you people to know. These are certain things that I want you people to understand clearly. So I guess you are able to follow this and you are able to understand everything that I'm teaching. Let us explain these types of joints one by one. So we explain them one by one. So we are looking at joints. My joints are. So we explain them one by one. The first one that we are going to start with, so the first type of joint that we are going to start with is what is called as fibrous joint. So we are going to start with what? Fibrous joints. Fibrous joints. These are the ones that we are going to start with. What are these joints now? You are going to discover that this is a type of what? A type of joints. So I'm going to say it is a type of joint. So it is a type of what? It is a type of joint. So we get to talk of a type of joints where what? Where the bones. So I'm going to say that where the bones are what? Where the bones are tightly. So here the bones are what? Are tightly held together. Here the bones are tightly held together. So when you are talking about fibrous joints, we are talking about those joints where these bones are tightly held together. So they are tightly held together by what we get to call what? By short. So I'm going to say by short and what? And tough. So by short and tough what? Fibers. Coming from the word fibers, fibrous joints. So they are held together by these what? Fibers. So this is what you are supposed to get. And I want you people to know this, and I want you to understand this. So when I say what is a fibrous joint, so you need to understand, okay, a fibrous joint, this is a type of a joint where the bones are tightly held together by short and tough fibers. So what we get to mean now, since they are held tightly like that, they are tightly held together, this is to tell you that these ones, they don't allow movement. So they don't what? They do not move. So this is what you need to understand. They do not what? They do not move. Hence, we get to call them what? So I'm going to say, hence, they are called what? Hence, these ones are called. So we get to call them what? Immovable joints. So they are called immovable joints. We get to call them immovable what? Immovable joints. Because they don't support movement. So they are called what? Immovable joints. They are tightly held together. So this is it, and this is what you need to understand. We get to talk over the bones of the what? The skull, which is the cranium. So when you see the cranium there, it is made up of bones that are held together. So those bones, they get to have some joints. You can't tell me that it's just one thing like that. No, they are what? There are joints there. So they are held together to the point that these ones, they don't do what? They don't move. So good example, we talk of bones of the skull, which is the cranium. So these are what we get to call what? We get to call them as fibrous joints. So we get to talk of what? Bones of the what? Bones of the skull, which is called, we can also call it the cranium. So that is a best example that we can look at. Let us now move on and look at what we get to call as cartilaginous. So cartilaginous what? Cartilaginous joints. What are these now? From the word cartilage. So these things are self-explanatory points. They are able to explain themselves. So here, I'm able to see at cartilage. I'm able to see, okay, this one, there is what? You discover that there is cartilage. Okay, there is what? Cartilage. Now they are called cartilaginous what? Joints. So what are these joints? So you discover that we talk of what? We talk of joints that are held together. So these ones are held together. So you discover that they are held together by what? Cartilage. So they are held together by what? By cartilage. These ones are what? They only permit slight movement. So what do? You discover that they do what? These ones, they only do what? They only permit, they are just going to permit a slight what? They are going to permit a slight movement. So they will just permit a what? A slight movement. So since they permit a slight movement, so since they allow that, hence they are called. So hence they are called what? Hence they are called. So hence they are called what? They are called slightly. So they are called slightly movable. So slightly what? Slightly movable joints. They are called slightly movable what? Joints. This is how you are supposed to get them. They are called slightly movable what? Movable joints. Example, we can talk of what? So I'm going to say, for example, e.g., when we get to consider the invertebrate, or let me say when we consider the intervertebrate. So intervertebrate like this. So when we consider the intervertebrate disc, where we look at that part that gets to hold. So the intervertebrate disc, that does what? That gets to hold. So these ones, you discover that it is going to hold the what? It is going to hold the vertebrae together. So the vertebrae together in the what? In the spine. So together in what? In spine. Or in the column. I guess you know of something that we get to call the vertebrae column. So this is a best example. So these ones, they just allow a slight movement. So they are called slightly movable joints. These are what? Cartilaginous joints. I guess we are moving together and you are able to flow with me. And even as we are flowing together, you are also writing down the notes. This is the reason why I'm not that fast. I'm very slow, even as we are moving together, just like that. We proceed now and look at another type of a joint that is called a synovial joint. So I want us to look at a what? I want us to look at a synovial joint. So let us look at a synovial joint. So this is the third one. We get to call it the synovial what? The synovial joint. So this is the third one. It is called the what? Synovial joint. What are these synovial joints? You need to get that synovial joints we are talking about joints that are made of what? So these are joints that get to be made of what? So joints made of what? Cavities. So these ones are made of what? Are made of cavities. These cavities that get to contain what? So I'm going to say are containing a fluid. So containing a what? Containing a fluid that we get to call what? Synovial fluid. So it is called a what? It is called a synovial fluid. Containing a fluid that is called a synovial what? And a synovial fluid. And these ones, they allow movement in one or more planes. So you discover that these ones, what do? They allow. So they are going to do what? They are going to allow movement. So they allow movement in one or more planes. So in one or more what? Or more planes. So this is it. So when we are talking about synovial joints, we are talking about these joints that get to allow movement. It can be in one or more what? More planes. So this is what we get to mean. And I also want you to understand that these ones are said to be what? Since they allow movement in one or more directions, I will say that they are what? They are said to be what? These ones are said to be movable joints. We shall call them what? Movable what? Movable joints. So we get to call them what? We get to call them movable joints. So there are several types of synovial joints. If we are to talk about types of synovial joints, there are quite a lot. We've got, so I'm going to say they are what? They are a lot, or I'm going to say there are several. So I'm going to use this word. There are several what? There are several types. So I'm going to say there are several types of what? Synovial joints. We've got several types of synovial joints. There are quite a lot. So they are called synovial what? Synovial joints. There are quite a lot. But just to look at few examples of these same synovial joints. So example, we can consider what we get to call a ball and a socket. So a ball and what? Ball and socket joints. So ball and what? Socket what? Ball and a socket joint. So we can look at a ball and socket joints is an example. Aside this, we can also look at a hinge. So we can look at a hinge what? A hinge joint. So these are examples of types of synovial joint. These are not types of synovial joints, but examples of the types of the synovial, a lot of synovial joints that we get to have. So if we look at now the examples of the types of a synovial joint, we can now consider what we get to call a ball and socket. Ball and socket joints, we talk about hinge joints. So these are examples. I believe you people are able to follow even up to here. You are following, attending to this, as well as writing what? Writing the notes. So this is what I want you to get, and this is what I want you to understand. So let us look at these now. We now try to look at them a bit, even as we get to conclude this particular lesson. This is a short lesson, and I believe you are able to enjoy. If you are not able to understand, you can. These videos are for you. Don't just make a mistake of sharing. So you can watch them. Even after this particular lesson, you can go through them. You try to perfect and understanding. You are able, where you are seated, when you are seated alone, you say, This I talked about 3 types of muscles. Are you able to explain and give examples of those types of muscles? I've also given you 3 main types of joints. Are you able to explain and give examples of those same joints? This is how we get to study. So if you are not able to explain, it means that you are not understanding the concept. And how can you understand the concept? After this particular lesson, you get your book, the notes, the same notes that I've been giving. You try to analyze them and try to go through them and see if you're able to answer exam questions. So let us now look at the ball and a socket. So we look at the ball and socket joint. So the ball and what? The ball and the socket from the word. So when we talk about the ball and socket, so when we say, okay, this is the ball and socket joint, what we get to mean is where one bone has a what? A round head. So we talk about, I'm going to say that this is a situation now where one what? Where one bone, when one bone has a what? Has a round head. So when it has a round what? A round head. And this particular head, this is what we are calling a ball. And when we say a socket, another should have a depression. So I'm going to say it must have a what? And has a what? A depression. So that particular a part that is in there, that is what we get to call a socket. So when we say a ball and socket joint, we are talking about 2 bones, one having a head, that is a ball, another one having a depression, which is a what? A socket. So this is how you need to get these things. A good example, and we can also consider examples of these. We've got hip joints, shoulder joints. So you discover that these shoulders, have you seen the bones that are here? Discover that each like that. So these are examples. Hip joints here. So as if then punda depression like that. So this is what I get to mean. So you discover that there are joints that allow movement in 3 planes. So these ones, you discover that these are what? I'm going to say that these are joints. So these are joints that do what? That allow. They are going to allow what? They are going to allow movement. So these ones get to allow what? They allow movement in 3 planes. So they allow movement in 3 what? In 3 planes. They are going to allow movement in 3 planes. E.g., we consider what? Hip joints. So we've got hip joints. We also have shoulders. So I'm going to say shoulder joints. These are good examples of these things. I guess you people are able to write down these things and you're able to follow me clearly and attentively. So this is just the ball and socket. Let us now look at another joint that is called an hinge what? Hinge joint. What is an hinge joint? When we are talking about an hinge joint, we are talking about a joint just that allows what? This one gets to allow what? Allow movement in only one direction. So it allows movement in only what? One direction. So if I tell you to say, what is an example of a synovial joint that allows movement in one direction? We get to call it an hinge what? Hinge joint. It allows movement in only what? One direction. You discover that here we are talking about planes. So one what? One plane. In direction is just to make you get the concept that okay, to just face this other way. So in what? In one plane. And you discover that these ones are usually at an angle. So discover that usually through what? Usually through an angle of what? through an angle of 180. Through an angle of what? 180 degrees. So through an angle of 180 degrees, example of these ones, we can talk of what? We can talk of a knee joint. We can consider a knee joint, have you seen, just in one direction. Apart from understanding this, you also look at a what? A knuckle joint. So we also consider a what? A knuckle joint. This only gets to allow movement in one plane, usually through an angle of what? 180 degrees. From this now, it is very important for us to understand now what we get to call the structure. It is very important of us to understand a structure of a what? Synovial joint. So we look at a general structure of a what? A synovial joint. So let us now draw the structure of a synovial joint. So check through the group. I've forwarded a diagram that you need to draw. So make sure you draw this particular part and study. If there is an exercise, I shall push it in the group. If I've not sent anything, it means there is no exercise. It is just a matter of studying. So make sure that the 1 hour that we have for biology, we use it wisely. We need to be studying. So it's just a matter of us studying. We need to make sure that we are studying. So let me push now in the structure of a synovial joint. Study through it, understand the parts, and next time when we meet, I'm going to start explaining the structures of the synovial joint. So make sure that you understand them. When I say, okay, the name of this part is this, you are even able to picture it. Okay, this is it that the sir is talking about. Okay, this is the one. Oh, this one is here. Oh, this one is back here. You are able to understand them. Not whereby I mention a part here, you don't know anything. So this is the reason why we've ended here. So I'm going to share a diagram, and you are going to draw it and make sure study everything where we started from up to here. So your duty is very small tonight.